I think we have a good enough size group that we will go ahead and get started. Lots to cover today, so want to make sure we leave enough time for that. Today, we are going to be talking about how nonprofits can engage in this election cycle. We have a pretty exciting election cycle this year, I think, with lots of changes resulting from term limits, from people maybe stepping away from their positions, people wanting to run for other positions. And we could think of no one better to kind of guide us through all that entails, all the wonderful things to think about than Brigid Howe, the executive director of Nonprofit Montgomery. So I'm going to turn things over to her to get us kicked off and started today. Welcome, Brigid. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Anne Marie. I'm really excited for this conversation because I know a few of you on the call. And those who I don't know, I look forward to getting to know you. I'm a nerd. I'm just a local politics nerd and have been since I was a student in Montgomery County Public Schools. When I was a senior in high school, I was a page in Annapolis for the General Assembly and got to live up there for 2 weeks or down there, I guess, being a page and supporting the legislature during the session and have been engaged in local politics ever since. So that is decades of work. And so I'm really excited to share some of my thoughts and some facts and information with you. So give me a second just to get my screen up for you. And I'll start off just by introducing you to Nonprofit Montgomery. So, Nonprofit Montgomery is an alliance of nonprofits that provide services to residents in Montgomery County. Most of our members, we have about 200 members. Most of our members do work in the human services and basic needs space. Although we do have representation from a lot of other sectors. And our purpose as an organization is to provide capacity building or learning opportunities for nonprofit staff so that they can operate more efficiently and effectively. We also provide opportunities for connection and networking because we know that peer learning is incredibly effective. And also, we all need a phone a friend sometimes. And then finally, we advocate for the sector on the county level. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into talking about the upcoming elections. And if folks have questions, please feel free to throw them into the chat. And then I've built in some time for Q&A and conversation at the end as well. So let's get started. Okay. You already have entered into the chat your name and your organization and affiliation, so ignore this slide. But what I would love to see from you is in the chat, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank your familiarity with local elections? And by local, I'm going to say the gubernatorial election, which is the cycle that we're in, which is not the same cycle as the presidential election, which usually tends to get all the excitement and energy in the room. So would love to just kind of get a sense of from everyone of what your familiarity is. I see a 5, I see a 9, awesome, 7-ish. All right, I see another 9 and 8. Okay, this is great. 5, 7, excellent. So oops, I just closed my slide. Okay, so I'm excited to hear that folks are familiar with local elections and that there is room for some more experience with it. Often, again, presidential elections tend to suck a lot of energy out into the political coverage. We also don't have a whole lot of local media here that are covering in the state or the county that are covering our elections. However, we have essentially doubled our local media in the last few weeks as the banner has come online in Montgomery County. So I want to review objectives for our conversation. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the policymakers in Montgomery County, who they are, who is up for reelection, and that takes us into kind of election 2026. What do you need to know? And then finally, I want to spend the rest of our time talking about how, as a nonprofit leader and as a nonprofit, you and your organization can engage in electoral politics. We're not going to talk about federal or state or municipalities. There is a municipality that has an election coming up in just a few weeks. And I'm not going to get into that, though happy to talk offline if anybody wants to. And we are also not going to talk about the new administration or presidential elections in this, just to set that clear. So in Montgomery County, we have our policymakers include an elected official, our county executive in the executive branch, our legislative branch, which is our county council, and our board of education. which is an elected body. The planning board do make decisions and make policy. They are not elected though. They are appointed, but I didn't want to leave them off the list. For county council, there are 7 district council members and 4 at large. Important to know that council members are term limited to 3 4-year terms consecutive. They are elected in gubernatorial years, which includes the upcoming year. I always like to just put a reminder in here that they use the term council member instead of gendered terms, just to uh, remind folks of that. Their positions are full-time and they do have staff. The executive branch, our county executive, is term limited to 2 4-year terms. So, which means that our current county executive is now term limited. That is a full-time position, and they are also elected in gubernatorial years. For the Board of Ed, there are 4 district members, 3 at large, and 1 student member. They serve 4-year terms, but half of them elected in presidential election years, the rest in gubernatorial, and the student member is elected annually. So that's a little bit more confusing to keep track of, to be honest. Those positions are considered part-time and they have a small staff. I did put in here, and I'm going to share these slides out, the way that you can find out who your representatives are in case you don't know that. These are live links to the various maps, and then this is an example of what your voting districts look like. And this is my office. Our voting districts for my office are the 8th Congressional District, the 17th Legislative District in the state of Maryland, the 3rd District for Council. I didn't even know we had a circuit court district, but we do. And then Central Committee, Municipal, we're in City of Rockville. For Board of Ed, we're District 2, et cetera, et cetera. So this is really, you should be sure to know that because these are the folks you're going to want to get to know. And these might be elections that you want to pay closer attention to. So election 2026, and you're like, why are we talking about this now? It is September 2025. This is more than a year away. But the reality is that it has already started. Filing opened in February of 2025, and candidates could start to file. Eligibility for public financing match opened at the end of June 2025, and we've already got candidates submitting and getting their matches for public financing. Looking ahead, key dates to keep in mind. The filing deadline, as in the day we will know who is actually all in the mix, is February 24th, 2026. The primary is June 23rd, 2026, and that is moved up a week. It was originally supposed to be on the 30th, but they made it a little bit earlier in this past legislative session. And then the general election is a little more than a year away in November 2026. The key to remember is that in Montgomery County, and this I think was in one of the bullet points, the primary is pretty much the way that the general election is going to go. So as you're thinking about your advocacy and your outreach, you really want to target it for the time period between essentially today and June of 2026. You can certainly do things between the primary and the general, but it's not necessarily going to be as impactful as it might be before the primary decisions are made. So I had fun trying to figure out the right analogy for what is happening locally right now. And the best I could come up with is musical chairs. We have so much motion happening, and currently there's something like 23 declared candidates for, or 25, I think, actually, for all of the positions that are open on the county level. That doesn't even count the state delegate positions or governor, which are also on the ballot. Short summary, and then we're going to go into kind of the weeds on this. County executive, we currently have 5 candidates, 3 of whom are current county council members, which means they will not be staying on the county council. And just to make it more interesting, our current county executive is now going to be running for county council, and I believe has confirmed that. County Council, we have 5 open seats to date. We have the 3 that are running for the county executive. We have 1 who is retiring and 1 who is stepping down to pursue other opportunities. And so that is 5 out of 11. So almost half of our seats on the county council are open. And then the Board of Education, there are 4 seats up for election this time, or I'm sorry, there are 3 seats up for election, but there's going to be no, it's 4. I'm sorry. There's going to be an open seat. We'll get to the slide and I'll confirm my count. But there are 3 open seats to date, and 2 current members are one is retiring and stepping down, and 2 of the current members are running for county council. So this is a giant game of musical chairs, and it's hard to kind of keep track of everyone. So we're going to go through position by position. Okay, so this is the county executive and his team. Ignore his team. He's circled because he's leaving. That position is going to be open. And then he is running for county council. This is the county council. I messed up my coloring. I should have actually reversed it. The blue circles, these are going to be open seats. So you can see we have 1, 2, 3, Gabe, Evan, and Will. Those are going to be at-large seats, which means they're countywide representatives that are open. Of these, Gabe is stepping down. Andrew Friedson is running for county executive. Evan Glass is running for county executive. Will Jawando is running for county executive. And then Sydney Katz in District 3 is retiring. At this time, I don't think all of the red circles have confirmed that they're running again, but they're running again as far as anyone knows. So that's the county council, going to be about a 50% shift in that. And there's over 20 candidates already declared for those jobs. And then the Board of Education, yes, I was right, it was 4. Julie Yang, who is currently the president, is running for county council in District 1. Brenda Wolf is retiring. Grace Rivera Oven is going to be running again. She has confirmed that. She'll be an incumbent. And Carla Silvestre, who serves at large, is going to be running for county council at large. So musical chairs, open seats. And currently there's only 1 officially declared candidate for the Board of Education. All right, so how do you find out about some election information? I just have a few bullet points here. We try to send stuff out in our advocacy, our materials, our advocacy alerts, our newsletter. Official accounts on social media will help you, and various official websites, and I'll send links to some of these afterwards. Now I want to move into talking a little bit about yes, and I will share the slide. Sorry, I just wanted to check the chat quickly before I switched gears. I'm going to switch gears now into what can you do as a nonprofit, because this is really important. There are some conversations happening at the federal level with the new administration about changing some of the guidance or policies or laws around tax exempt status to allow for there to be political engagement, but they're mostly talking about that for churches, not for nonprofits that provide services. And with the administration currently, as decisions are made, they get sued. Sometimes they take things back, sometimes they don't. So we're going to just move forward with the status quo currently, which is that nonprofits cannot be partisan and they cannot choose one candidate or over another or endorse them. That's kind of just the baseline. I have this little handy guide, like there's the what you can't do. You can't endorse a candidate. You can't invite one candidate to an opportunity where they may be highlighted without ensuring an equal opportunity for all. I'll talk a little bit about exceptions to that. And you cannot fundraise or donate to a candidate. That's just not okay. What you can do, you can conduct voter registration, and I in fact encourage you to conduct voter registration. You can encourage your clients or your volunteers or your stakeholders to vote. You can take positions on policy. You can also educate the folks that you work with on the candidates, as long as what you're educating them on is fact-based and supported by their own words or their own stated policy stances. And I go into that a little bit more. So how can you in your nonprofit engage with candidates? And ways that you can, and why would you want to? This, I think, is sometimes the question. Why would I even want to get involved in politics? Politics is kind of an interesting game to be in right now. But the reason you want to be, what I believe is the reason that a nonprofit should consider engagement is that the folks who win are going to be the folks making decisions that affect you into the future. And there is a former council member who once told me, and I love these words, is that the best time to meet a politician or the best time to meet an elected official is before they're elected. And that's because you want them to come into their role understanding the issues that you care about and understanding how they may be able to affect policy changes. So, how do you do that? One, invite candidates to events that you have. If you have a fundraiser, if you have, you're having a policy conversation, if you're launching a new initiative that's going to bring folks together from multiple organizations, make sure that all of the candidates know that. And if you're doing something that's, a physical event or a Zoom, invite them. When you do that, though, please invite all of them so it does not appear, there's not an appearance of favoritism. Where there could be an exception to that is if you are inviting somebody who is running for office, but you are inviting them in their current role or capacity. And what I recommend in that, I'll give an example. Let's say that you're doing an event and you normally will invite you invite the county executive because he's the county executive. You can keep doing that. You just need to make sure that he understands that it is not a campaign event. Same thing with, and I'll give another example. You have, county council members running for county executive. If they would be somebody like, let's say, Councilmember Jawando is chair of education and culture. If you're a culture organization and you would normally invite him to be a speaker or to come to your event, that's fine. Just be sure that, again, he understands the parameters and the position in which you're inviting him. You can also do a questionnaire, and I'll talk about whether you should. You can do a questionnaire, send it to all candidates, and however you share the results, share everything that you received. Share it from every candidate. If a candidate didn't respond, include their name and that they did not respond to it. You can, but should you? My question is ask yourself that, or my thought is ask yourself that question. Candidates drown in these questionnaires. And if yours is not necessarily, what I would hate to see, for example, would be every single organization that is part of the Food Council sending a separate questionnaire to every single candidate, when potentially you could collaborate and create a sector-wide version. So again, you can, but you may not want to. Another host or co-host a forum for the positions that can impact your clients. Nonprofit Montgomery is doing a candidate forum for the county executive position. We've done that for the past 2 cycles, and we'll be doing it again. And we, are going to have a host, we're going to have questions, we're inviting the candidates, and again, inviting all candidates to appear. You can offer unbiased and factual information about candidates to your clients. You can send, or your volunteers. You can send links to their positions, to their websites, what their positions are. If you did a questionnaire, again, you can share what you got. But this is not the place to say, "Wow, so and so is such a really nice guy. I know he cares about my issue." I want to leave that out of it and just say, let me send you the websites of all of the candidates running for this position so you can look and make a decision for yourself. You can absolutely register your clients as voters if they're not registered already. And you can educate them about the electoral process, about how they register, how they vote, how to get to the polls, where to find information and how to make decisions. And I would argue that it's our responsibility as service providers and as part of civil society to use our position as trusted messengers to encourage voting. We can look in Montgomery County traditionally, and I should have brought this map. I'm going to add this to my next version of this. We have really, really high voter turnout overall. Our highest voter turnout is in a specific area of the county. They call it the Down County Crescent, and it's Bethesda, Silver Spring, and Tacoma Park. That is our highest turnout area. Rockville has pretty strong turnout as well. Where we do not have high voter turnout, and I'm saying turnout, this is not just a question of whether there are a lot of folks who are not yet citizens who can't vote, but this is actually turnout rates. The rate of turnout for registered voters is the Up County and the East County. And we also could overlay that voter turnout with investment, with service requirement, services needed, and with a whole lot of other needs and areas of concern. And there is going to be an overlap. When you vote, political officials show up for you. When your community votes, they show up. When your community doesn't, I'm not saying they don't show up, they do, but it might be slightly less of a priority. And so getting folks to vote is really, really important. And a lot of people don't understand the power that local elections have over their day-to-day life, whether it's their property tax, their transit schedules, their trash pickup. All of that stuff happens because of who we elect locally. You can also, again, I mentioned tell people how to vote and how to do it. You can also offer assistance getting to the polls, but you can't do any kind of purity test for that. Like you can't just say, I'm only going to take you to the polls if you're voting for the right people. That you can't do that. You take everyone to the polls, no matter who you think they're going to vote for, but you can offer that assistance. What is Nonprofit Montgomery doing? I mentioned already. So advocacy is a big part of the work that we do for nonprofits, and it's one of the, I think, most exciting parts of our work. We are hosting a county executive forum on May 6th. That's going to be at the City of Rockville's Fitzgerald Theater, so kind of in the middle of the county. We are holding informational meetings with all county council candidates. We've had 2 sessions of those to date where we reached 7 candidates and had really great conversations about and candid conversations about some of the concerns that nonprofits are facing when it comes to county level work. We are going to be putting out a questionnaire for county council and county executive candidates. We're keeping it really short though because of what we talked about earlier. We don't want to add to the onslaught of paper, but there are some issues that are very niche and very specific to nonprofits that we would like to get folks on the record about. And then finally, like I'm doing today, we're sharing information about nonprofits' ability to participate in politics, electoral politics, with our members and then other folks in the community. I kept in here a link to social media and to various local media, just because this is where you will see the elections covered, such as it may be. And now questions. I do see a question in the chat. Let me pull that up quickly. And you say, can you clarify, can we want to meet individually with candidates to tell them about our issue? And if so, do we need to be sure to extend that one-to-one invite to all candidates? Can we invite to meet individually? Yes, you absolutely can invite candidates to meet with you individually. And I would invite every candidate if you do that. Because again, you don't want the appearance of favoritism. I will say if it's the other way around, if a candidate reaches out to you and says, I would love to get to know more about the food issues that you are working on, you can absolutely meet with that person. And then you don't have to go out and say, oh gosh, so-and-so called me. I now need to call the other 20 candidates. It's fine if only if they did. But if you are initiating the outreach, please do reach out to all of the candidates to avoid the appearance of favoritism. Other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any here. So wanted to just again highlight, oh, can I talk about the advocacy we're doing on behalf of nonprofits? Dana, do you mean generally or in for election specific?
Sorry, hi. I'll say, I guess I mean generally, and just curious, what with all the things that are happening sort of at the federal level, but also like locally, I know we've had talks and discussions around, for instance, all the like the county now including indirect costs in budgets, but then wanting massive amounts of documentation of that, which is very time consuming, and they're not paying for the staff to do that. And so sort of things around are what nonprofits in Montgomery are facing, and how the counties can be more helpful to support nonprofits, not just through all the political changes, but just at an operational level.
Yeah, so we actually just yesterday hosted a meeting with an advisory meeting with Dr. Bridgers at Health and Human Services with the leaders of a few different nonprofit organizations to talk about what he is seeing coming up in the future. So we do a lot of convenings. We do a lot of bringing folks together. We do have an advocacy committee that meets regularly once a month sorry, my cat. They meet once a month and they help us define our priorities and where we want to spend our time, which is why one of our priorities this year is the election. You did hit on one of our specific content areas, which is, there's multiple areas that fall under contracting that we do educate our elected officials and our policymakers, even the appointed ones, about. One is obviously issues related to contracting, not just indirect costs, but also RFPs. There have been challenges with RFPs recently. And I'll get to grants, that's a whole separate issue. Contract monitor training. We're actually doing a training for contract monitors at DHHS to help them better understand how nonprofits operate. Let's see, we are actively engaged in advocacy around the Office of Grants Management improvements. We're a participant on the strategic work group that is going to be defining some future priorities for the Office of Grants Management. Those are public meetings. I encourage anyone who wants to watch and engage. And when I'm done talking, I'll drop a link to that in the chat. We are also, another element that I put under our advocacy umbrella is that we educate about the sector to policymakers. So in March, we issued a report on the nonprofit sector in Montgomery County that was based on a community assessment that we did. And we are actually putting out next week an update to that report that will focus on the first 6 months of the federal administration and the impacts that Montgomery County nonprofits have felt. In that report, the larger report, we had about 10 recommendations for the community to help improve the nonprofit sector. And I am so excited that multiple of those recommendations have been moving forward. We've seen progress on them. But in our supplement that's coming out next week, we also have recommendations around the county, what we think the county should do to help nonprofits strengthen and potentially rebuild through after the effects of the administration. And so we're going to be putting that information out next week. I feel like I'm missing something. We obviously do our operating budget advocacy every year. We go and we say, please give us an inflationary adjustment. But I want to circle back though, Dana, to what you said about the indirect costs. And yes, on the surface, what came out from DHHS was a win, right? They were like 15% indirect, yay, great, you all get it. But they've operationalized it in a way where it actually is not going to have the impact that it should. They are saying basically your bottom line can't change. So if you're increasing your indirect from say 10% to 15%, you've got to absorb that from another line item in your budget because they're also saying your scope can't change. And so we are pushing back. We're having conversations. I talk to Mark Hodge frequently. And I'm trying to gather some of the stories. So Dana, for example, you mentioned that the documentation that they're asking for is taking a lot. I have not seen specifics. So, my contract monitor did not ask for a significant amount of documentation from us. So that is an inconsistent practice that I would love to be able to go to them and say, let's help figure this out. Oh, this is Office of Food System Resilience. Okay, yeah, and grants. Okay, so the way the indirect is working in the grants is, I think, different than in the contracts. So Dana, I hope that answered your question. I felt like that was a lot, but this is a huge priority. Oh, and then one thing that we're doing that's recent is that we brought together, this was last week, it was very exciting. We brought together a group of organizations that serve as conveners for their area, their issue area. So that of course included the Food Council to talk about issues that all of them are that are issues in common and some that are unique, but are there ways that these unique organizations can work together for some of the changes, as you mentioned. And then I see one more question. Can I give more info about the questionnaire? I would love to give you more info about the questionnaire. We have not written it yet. So, if you would like to be engaged in Nonprofit Montgomery's advocacy, let me know and I will add you to our invite for our advocacy committee. We really run most of our advocacy work through that committee, but this is not a clique. You can join. We are not mean girls. So you can join. You just have to raise your hand and we'll add you to the invite list. We are going to be tasking a subgroup of our advocacy committee with writing the questionnaire and with writing the script for the County Executive Forum in May. So if you join, you get to be part of it. And I will add you. So, all right. I had said I would be right about 30 minutes, and I'm right at 30 minutes. So are there any additional questions? Okay, I see. All right. Another person wants to be added. I'll take notes. If you could drop your emails in, that would be great. And I'll add you right now.
And I'll share because I know that was a lot of incredible information that Brigid just shared. And so some of you may be taking, a few moments to let that all sink in. I will just share in this time, 2 years ago during the previous election cycle, the Food Council did have a food system candidate questionnaire. And, that is something that we are looking to do again. We shared that with all of the candidates. We posted responses on our website. We had some pretty good engagement out of that. And that is something that we'll be working with our partners to develop for this year as well. So again, look ahead to more information on that. We'll be reaching out to our food system partners.
I see one more question in the chat about sharing information about the strategic group related to OGM. What I'll do is drop the charter for that group, the web page that has the charter for the group and who is on it and when their meetings are. And again, those are public meetings because it is a council appointed committee. They're public meetings, and if you attend as a member of the public, you may not have the opportunity to speak, but being there shows the decision makers that we care about these issues. So, and yes, Dana, thank you. I see the future meetings of DHHS. This was bringing together a committee that was formed, oh my gosh, like maybe over 10 years ago, before I was at Nonprofit Montgomery the first time. And we basically used the same invitation list, but we'll certainly expand that as we're able in the future. This was designed to be a very closed door small group conversation to have a candid future facing conversation with Dr. Bridgers, but we're always looking for opportunities to expand that. So
Brigid, the work you're doing back to the Office of Grants Management, I know we've heard that they were going to be rewriting their regulations, and I was just curious if this is an effort to lead to that final product.
yeah, so the scope of what the strategic work group is doing is somewhat narrow. It is focused on essentially defining the parameters for the community grants NDA funds for the next round of grants. And cost sharing capital grants. So, those of you who, got community grants or were in the community grant cycle, which maybe most of you, I think probably mostly go through OFSR grants, but those grants were 3-year and they are renewed each year. And so there will not be an open community grants process until 2027, essentially. So what they're doing with this group is they're trying to say, hey, let's put together, we saw things went wrong the last time, right? Let's be candid. Things did not go well the last time. Let's put together guidance that is going to help things operate more smoothly and also meet the needs of the community. So we're talking specifically about the Community Grants NDA, the legacy grants, cost sharing capital grants, and timeline, length of grant, like is 3 years the right length, and how the pots of money should be allocated or defined. So it is a very focused conversation. It's not, I would like it, just because of how I operate, I would like it to be a little bit more like, let's fix everything. But I get that they couldn't do that. But that's the goal of it. Oh. And Chris, you're saying, are any members 501c4s? Do you mean Nonprofit Montgomery members or?
Yes.
We do have a couple of 501c4s and a couple C6s as well. So, one thing that would be that I'm hoping to put together eventually is kind of a conversation on when should you start a C4, because most of the C4s in Montgomery County are associated with a C3, and should you, and when, if so, how? But that will be a future project. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions, or I don't think I missed anything. So thank you so much, Anne Marie and Food Council team, for the invitation. This is a lot of fun. I'm also always happy to answer questions offline. When I say that I'm a nerd, I live for this stuff, and people reaching out and being like, tell me more about local elections. That makes me really happy. So feel free. I'm going to drop my email in the chat.
Great. We so appreciated you joining us today to share this. I will put in a plug for you, since you haven't. If you are not a Nonprofit Montgomery member, and you are a nonprofit operating in Montgomery County, you should be. So I would definitely reach out. I think there are also many opportunities that Nonprofit Montgomery extends to non-members that, for nonprofits in the county. But there are definitely some really informative and useful trainings and webinars and such. So we always encourage folks to take advantage of that. Brigid, feel free to share if there's anything, I know you shared some of the events you're planning for the election cycle, things you will do. But if you have something kind of coming up on the horizon that you're offering, in the near future that you'd like to promote, please feel free to.
Yeah, I definitely. Thank you for that. Well, actually, this is Friday. We're doing a terrific session on inclusion that we're doing it at Main Street Connect, using the expertise of our Main Street colleagues. And that's on our website. We have a calendar of events. But the one I really want to highlight is that in October, and I do not have the dates on the tip of my tongue, but I'll drop it in the chat. We're doing our financial management training, and that's called FIRM, and I don't know what it stands for, Financial Institute of Risk, I don't know, it's something, but it's related to finance, financial management, and how to do it responsibly so that you can be sustainable and effective in the long term. And that is in person. It's 2 days in October. And if you have not done it, or if you have not done it recently and you've had a change of leadership in your organization, I highly recommend it. It's a really good training. And it really helps you get, again, mission focused and mission oriented. But I'll drop a link to our calendar in the chat as well.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for the pitch too.
Of course.
And I think my turn now. Thank you again, Brigid, for all of that information. I think what was going through my mind the most in listening to our election talk is just what difficult questions our candidates are going to be facing this term. Being mindful of candidate questionnaires and things like that. On the one hand, I'm very happy that, we don't have to have those answers yet. But when you really think about what Brigid said about, getting to know your elected officials before they become elected officials, a critical role that we play as a community of organizations trying to solve food system problems is offering up those solutions. And the biggest question, I think, in many of our minds is, how are we going to serve an ever increasing need of our community members with ever lessening resources? We're all hearing the drumbeat of what is going to happen at the state level, what is going to happen at the county level, what is already happening at the federal level. And so we really here at the Food Council are asking ourselves, what can we do as a community to address this crisis in a community-led way? And we wanted to bring to your attention 2 ways in which we think this can happen, and 2 initiatives that are being put forward. I will start the conversation with a discussion of a basic needs coalition, something that our organization has been talking about in some form or another as long as I've been here. But it feels like this is the time where we really need to crystallize and come together as a group of organizations serving our community members and figure out how to do it tactfully and effectively. And then I will turn it over to AK from MANA and Brenna from Shepherd's Table, who will share sort of another side of the advocacy and coalition building coin in a food justice coalition. So first things first about a basic needs coalition, as I've said, and I will try to share my slides here. There we go. When we talk about alleviating food insecurity as a community of food system minded organizations, we know that food is just one part of the puzzle piece. From a client perspective, the way that we serve our own SNAP clients, we are constantly trying to put them in touch with other resources and hear from them the very difficulties they have with housing, with childcare, and other stresses. We're hearing from other community organizations who are not necessarily in the food world that they don't necessarily understand all of the resources that are available and what the specific barriers are that a person who is experiencing food insecurity might be running up against. We hear from our elected officials that they are having to make very difficult decisions, and they need to make targeted investments that are going to have the highest impact. And I think the other thing we hear from everyone is what do we understand about our residents experiencing poverty, and what data and education do we need to better serve them? So the basic needs of our community, I think in terms of data, what we have and what we've relied on to sort of tee up this issue has been the self-sufficiency report that was put out a couple years ago. And those of us working in this community and serving our residents know what those pressures are. It is food, it is housing, childcare, healthcare. A recent elected official said we have food, water, shelter, and food comes first. And as somebody in the food world, that is interesting to hear, but I think we all know that's just not the case. There is no first here. And I think some of the data bears that out when you look at how people in this county are having to spend their money. Food, housing, all of these things are a complete necessity in order to have a thriving community. And I think one of the difficulties we have as various community organizations serving in different ways is fully understanding what the trade-offs are that households are having to make in order to make ends meet. We have seen information out of the Capital Area Food Bank's Hunger Report where they show that food insecure households are having to cut meals, that they couldn't, that they had to choose between these various other pressures in order to feed themselves. And we also recognize that there are a host of benefits out there. We hear the fear that, you know, SNAP might be reduced or unavailable for some people, or that there just isn't the resources to support some of these programs. But we know they're there, and we know that as organizations serving these people have access to all of this information, we want to understand how we can really maximize whatever is out there. We also know that this idea of a basic needs coalition is not new. There are many organizations and initiatives going on around the county that are really trying to hit at this problem. We see coalitions happening in the way of the Emergency Assistance Coalition, which is really, you know, focused on housing and utility and financial needs, but also recognizes food as an issue there. We know that there are initiatives out of the governor's Governor's Office with the Enough grant, where communities are coming together and trying to look at childhood poverty in a systemic and comprehensive way. So we know that there are these different efforts to tackle this problem. And I think what we see from our end is still this need to make connection. And, as a food council, as our reason is to exist, to bring people together to talk about these issues, we really see an opportunity here to invite other sectors into our space to learn and to likewise learn from them. So we really do see 5 different components, or I guess ways in which a basic needs coalition could serve our community. The first really is just building that understanding the needs of our clients from many different angles and learning from the organizations that are serving them. We have consistently heard that we want to create better pathways among these different sectors so that our clients are receiving the best care possible. And we are an advocacy call. We do understand that there is a need to advocate for the needs of our clients and our community members. We understand that organizations necessarily have to advocate for themselves, but we also understand that a collective advocacy effort will likely bring better results. And we want to understand how we can do both of those things. The other thing that we see a great opportunity with is leveraging the coalition to do fundraising beyond the government. There are grant opportunities that really do look at all levers of poverty and how we as a community can work together again to make that collective impact. And ultimately, our goal is to support our residents to move beyond living in poverty and building a more stable and thriving existence. Oops, I'm going to just stop sharing my screen. So before I turn it over to AK, I just wanted to say that our next steps really are twofold. One, we want to hear from you. We want to identify who needs to be at the table here. And so if you're up for it now, I invite you to put into the chat any organizations that you feel are not at the table, at this advocacy call table at the moment, that you feel would be helpful in helping us untangle this web. And the second thing is, once we do identify the participants, where do we start? And we really do see the first step as an educational initiative. Those of you who are specifically serving our residents with food assistance, we are all looking to Capital Area Food Bank and their hunger report coming out next month. And as a little teaser, we'll be inviting all of you to an event that really will explore what do we know about food data and food insecurity in our county, recognizing that this is going to be an even more critical question on the heels of our own federal government making decisions around what they are going to study. But then the next step really is going to be so great if we do have an understanding about where we are on the food security side. How can we educate and learn from others about all of these levers? So please, be on the lookout for us in the follow-up to this presentation with additional information. And with that, I will turn it over to AK to bring us up to speed on their efforts, and Brenna as well. Sorry, there you are.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you to the Food Council for leading this really necessary initiative to bring us all together across sectors. One way in which Brenna at Shepherd's Table and I at MANA are hoping to support the Food Council's efforts are by creating a space for community members to voice their concerns and to make sure we are amplifying those concerns. And especially on the last bullet point that Elizabeth shared, we want to make sure we are ensuring thriving beyond surviving, right? And that means having community-led sustainable solutions. So I will quickly share some slides and turn it over to Brenna for to start us off there. Give me 1 second.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Brenna. I'm the Advocacy Manager at Shepherd's Table. AK and I have been working on this for a little while, and we're really excited to announce that on Monday, we will be having our first meeting for Food Justice Coalition. The purpose of this space is really to bring together community members, orgs, experts with all types of experience and lived experience together to work towards diagnosing the problem that we're seeing and finding sustainable community-led solutions. So our goals are creating a space for our community members to have agency and empowerment, and go through a collective process really to find advocacy priorities, and eventually campaigns of some sort, and develop really creative grassroots solutions surrounding the food system, especially at the local level. The hope is that we're going to be activating a space for movement building within the food system, where we're really building community power, especially as, like we all know, like elections are happening. There's funding problems at all levels. We really need to be working together to find community-led solutions that are going to work here. So we want to look for these solutions in partnership with our community. And then also we are wanting to steward a platform for information, communication, and strategy directly from impacted community members to stakeholders of the food system. So like all of us are stakeholders, and we could also work very closely with this Basic Needs Coalition to really be providing expertise on the food system from the folks that are most directly experiencing the failings of it. I'm going to share the link in the chat for Monday night. It's going to be September 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. But first, I'm going to let AK share a little bit more.
Thank you, Brenna. And I'm so sorry if my screen sharing is a little weird. I'm trying to figure out the tech. Okay. So I did want to just explain a little bit more about how we're planning to work with the Basic Needs Coalition. So with the Basic Needs Coalition, we will be depending on that coalition to really break down those silos and make sure that we are connecting community members with all of the agencies, services, and programs or nonprofits that they need support from, and helping build relationships with funders and elected officials and other policymakers or decision makers. At the same time, the Food Justice Coalition itself will serve as a central space where food assistance providers can direct participants or clients to community organizing and advocacy efforts. So we are responding to this need that we have heard from other partners and other organizations where there is a need for a pathway in which community members can advocate for themselves or really elevate the concerns that they are feeling. We want to center community-led advocacy and knowledge gathering and solution building in order to support a robust community movement. I just want to point out that the different statistics that Elizabeth just shared essentially talk about the complex trauma that many households are facing and how that may escalate given policy changes. And it's really important when facing trauma to build resilience, and the strongest way to build resilience is through community. So we really want to make sure that this is a space where community members can feel safe and secure in advocating for themselves and each other. So this is the relationship that we are hoping to have, and Brenna will drop the link in the chat, and I will also put in the flyers. And hopefully you can share those with your participants so that they can attend this convening and help design what this justice coalition can look like in the future. So yeah, we hope that it's a helpful space and that you feel encouraged to share it with your participants as well.
Thank you, AK and Brenna. We're very excited about the work that you're doing, and just want to reiterate that we do see this as a very cooperative space and are looking forward to the ways in which our own community members can take part in all of this advocacy. Looking at the clock, I think we are just about wrapping up. We have a few minutes if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, just again, thanking you all for attending today. The very important information that Brigid shared will be shared out in slides. Be on the lookout for input into the Food Council's candidate questionnaire that we know is coming up. And we look forward to seeing you all at a future convening event. And Marie, anything else?
No, I'm just pointing out, I see Hope's hand up, so I wanted to
Oh, sorry, Hope.
No problem.
Blindsided.
I see some new faces, so I always want to just throw myself out there. So hi, everyone. I'm Hope McGuire. I'm the supervisor of community schools for Montgomery County Public Schools. Sometimes people see my name on stuff, but they haven't seen my face. So hi, it's good to see you. I just wanted to let you know that we have an open contact link for all 77 community schools. I just put that in the chat. It allows you to see who is the staff in the individual schools, that if you are working in a particular cluster or your nonprofit or whoever you might be associated with, those contacts are there. If it's a larger thing you're looking at, the central team is on the first tab in the first rows, and then it is literally listed by cluster. It tells you if they're a Title I designation, community eligibility or provision, what year they became a community school, who's their community school liaison, additional staff that is assigned to the building, wellness trainers, parent community coordinators. Not all schools have those. Some use their own funds for that. Who is a social worker or PPW, the nurses in those schools. So it's a comprehensive community school document I just like to share with people, because you don't have to necessarily wait on me. If you know you're only able to work with one particular cluster or a few schools, then this is a way for you to just kind of one-stop shop, and you never have to ask for an updated one. It's updated like every 2 weeks, or when something changes, we just keep it rolling throughout the entire school year.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Hope. And I will also share that if you have a child at an MCPS school, no doubt you have heard about a boundary study that is taking place. And so just to kind of draw another connection here of opportunities to engage and advocate and educate, make sure that you are involved in that process, and that decisions aren't just made for you, but also to share your input. And again, I think we have offered hope that many of our food assistance providers are serving specific school sites. And we know that they would be happy to host, anyone from MCPS who's looking to engage with families at those distributions to help get their input, because we know that there are a lot of communities that may not be familiar with this process or understand how to engage. Brigid.
I just want to echo that. We did a session, Nonprofit Montgomery did a session with MCPS staff about the boundary study, and the reason, and to try to explain why nonprofits should be involved. And, one of the reasons that I think you all probably know very well is that you make your decisions around service delivery based on the demographics of our schools, and if they are where you can truly reach them the most, reach the populations that need the services the most. And with this boundary study, we are going to see shifts in a lot of our our schools. And so you may, in fall of 2027, when these go into effect, you may have to think about where you want to locate your services differently, or how you might do outreach differently. So this decision will be made in early 2026. So there is about a 15 to 18 month rollout. So Nonprofit Montgomery is committed to sharing information about the decisions as they are made. But I do want to underscore, pay attention now as they're being made, because there's one proposal in the initial options map that reduces the population of one of our high schools by over 30%. So if you deliver services to that high school, your funding model could change, for example. So just want to underscore what Anne Marie was saying. This is all interconnected and very important work.
Yes, yes. And thanks to Nonprofit Montgomery for holding those kinds of sessions. It was really great. It is 2:01. We're going to let you go for today. Again, we'll be sharing material out, closer to the end of the week, the recording, the slides. So we appreciate your engagement and look forward to seeing you again next month. Have a great day.
Thank you. This was a great conversation.
Thank you.